Hi everyone, welcome to our channel where we share meaningful and inspiring stories every day. Today I want to take you on a journey of an Airbnb experience for a moment and describe something that happened this week to reflect on the power of kindness, transformation, and how small acts can create a big impact in someone's life. If you love heartfelt stories, life-changing lessons, and want to spread positivity to the world, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Your support means everything to us and helps us keep bringing more amazing stories to life. Now, let's dive into the incredible story of a dog which came together to create a story you won't want to miss. Have you ever wondered if a small act of courage could change a life or even an entire community? What would you do if you uncovered a truth that could change everything? Let's embark on this journey through the story of David, Max, and Sophia. The sun was hidden behind thick gray clouds, creating a gloomy atmosphere that mirrored the sorrow enveloping the small village. Today, the village was steeped in mourning as they bid farewell to Sophia, a beloved woman known for her kindness and gentle smile. However, her sudden passing had left behind questions and grief in the hearts of those she had left behind. In the silent space of the funeral, the coffin lay at the center, surrounded by carefully arranged bouquets of fresh flowers. The pale pink and pristine white petals underscored the sorrow and unspoken farewell that no words could adequately express. From the rows of seats, silent faces occasionally gave way to streams of tears that could not be held back. Suddenly, a sharp bark shattered the quiet mourning. Max, Sophia's loyal dog, was staring intently at the coffin. His barking was not just loud but filled with an urgent determination, as if he was trying to convey something that human language could not comprehend. The mourners began to glance at one another, fear and worry etched on their faces. "Why is Max behaving like this?" someone whispered. Children clung to their parents, their wide eyes filled with fright. Some children began to sob, their sniffles blending with the murmur of incessant whispers. Parents tried to comfort their children, but they themselves could not hide their concerned and uneasy expressions. A middle-aged man, his face tight with apprehension, murmured, "Maybe he senses something," but his words were swallowed by the heavy silence. Max's eyes remained fixed on the coffin, and his barking grew louder with each moment. What began as intermittent yelps had turned into an almost furious outburst. An elderly woman, her hands trembling as she clutched a handkerchief, whispered to the person beside her, "He's trying to warn us about something. I have a bad feeling." David, a newcomer to the village, stood in a corner of the church, his gaze locked on Max. Since moving here, David had heard much about Sophia and her loyal dog. However, today, Max's behavior left him unsettled. "Is he sensing something inside the coffin?" David wondered, his heart pounding in his chest. Max did not relent. His barks echoed, blending with the faint rustle of the wind seeping through the church windows, creating a heavy and suffocating atmosphere. A few adults seated nearby quietly stood up, as if unable to bear the tension. An old man, his face deeply lined with wrinkles, looked at Max with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Dogs don't act like this without a reason," he muttered. The priest, wearing an anxious expression, glanced around the congregation. He walked over to Max, crouched down, and gently placed his hand on the dog's head. "Max, calm down. Everything is fine here," he said soothingly. However, Max growled, backing away firmly, and barked even louder at the coffin, making the air in the church almost unbearably tense. The priest withdrew his hand, his eyes momentarily betraying his unease, before he forced a nervous smile to reassure the crowd. But that smile did little to dispel the growing sense of unease that was spreading throughout the church. After the funeral, Max led David back to Sophia's house. The small stone house by the forest now stood cloaked in an eerie, chilling atmosphere. The path leading to Sophia's house was lined with towering trees, their intertwined branches casting impenetrable shadows that even the faint moonlight struggled to break through. Each step David took echoed on the uneven dirt road, accompanied only by Max's sporadic barks and the haunting whisper of wind rustling through the leaves. The air felt heavy, laden with an unspoken foreboding. The door to Sophia's house was slightly ajar, as though someone had left in haste. Stepping inside, David immediately felt an overwhelming chill envelop him, a stark contrast to the warmth he had once heard described about this home. The silence within was oppressive, as though the walls themselves held their breath. Every object in the room appeared untouched, save for a fine layer of dust that hinted no one had entered for some time. Max wasted no time trotting purposefully to a drawer. The rhythmic clicking of his nails against the wooden floor sent a shiver down David's spine. He knelt beside the dog and opened the drawer Max indicated. Inside lay a letter, its hurried, trembling handwriting drawing a sharp intake of breath from David. "If you are reading this, it means I couldn't expose the truth in time. Father Jacob is not who everyone thinks he is. I discovered he has been exploiting the trust of the congregation to embezzle donation money. Find the key behind the picture frame in the living room. It will lead you to the truth." The words seemed to burn into David's mind. He stood, his gaze sweeping the room as if the very furniture might be watching him. Each chair, each photograph on the wall seemed to carry a weight of its own, silent witnesses to untold stories. Max remained still beside him, his bright eyes glowing with a sense of urgency. Without hesitation, David moved into the living room. The walls were adorned with photographs of Sophia's happiest moments, memories now frozen in time. The dim yellow light from the overhead lamp cast long shadows, giving the room an almost spectral quality. David searched meticulously, his fingers brushing against the dust-coated frames. Finally, his hand landed on a neatly placed family portrait. Turning it over, he found a small, old key, still gleaming despite its age. Max let out a soft whine, his tail wagging slightly as if to confirm they were on the right path. The journey to the church that night felt endless. The moonlight flickered weakly through the canopy of trees, casting moving patterns that played tricks on David's mind. His grip on the key tightened, as if it held the weight of the secret they were about to uncover. Max led the way, his steps firm and determined, exuding an uncanny sense of purpose. When they reached the church, its door creaked open with a sound so resonant it seemed to echo through the night, sending a chill down David's spine. Inside, the faint light from extinguished candles barely illuminated the vast interior. Shadows danced on the walls, their movements synchronized with the faint flicker of a distant lantern. David tread cautiously, his heart pounding in sync with the key trembling in his hand. At the base of a large statue, he spotted the outline of a metal box. As he knelt to retrieve it, Max barked sharply once more, the sound reverberating off the cold stone walls like a warning. The bark pierced through David's thoughts, grounding him momentarily in the present. Max stood tall beside him, his body rigid with anticipation, his gaze locked on the box. David's hands trembled as he inserted the key into the lock, turning it slowly. Each click of the mechanism echoed loudly, amplifying the silence. When the lock finally released with a metallic snap, David lifted the lid with deliberate care, bracing himself for what lay inside. The box contained neatly bundled stacks of cash, each labeled meticulously with the names of the village's faithful donors. Alongside the money lay a worn ledger, its yellowed pages filled with handwritten entries. As David flipped through the book, the extent of Father Jacob's betrayal became horrifyingly clear. The donations were siphoned off for purposes shrouded in cryptic codes and vague annotations. But it was the final note scrawled hastily at the bottom of one page that sent a chill down David's spine. "Be careful. They won't let this go unnoticed." David's breath caught in his throat, the weight of the discovery pressed heavily upon him. The cold air seemed to tighten around him, drawing the shadows closer, as if the church itself sought to conceal its secrets. The worn pages in his hands felt heavier than they should have, as though carrying the burden of the sins they documented. Max growled softly, his body tense and poised, his ears flicking toward sounds imperceptible to human ears. The atmosphere thickened, pressing down on David's chest, filling his lungs with the weight of countless unspoken truths. He closed the ledger carefully, his fingers trembling against its fragile spine. Holding it tightly against his chest, he whispered, "We have to bring this to light." His voice was steady, yet beneath the calm lay a current of turmoil. Max gave a short, sharp bark, his tail wagging ever so slightly, a gesture of solidarity, a promise to stand by his side no matter what lay ahead. But just as they turned toward the door, the oppressive silence shattered. A faint creak echoed through the vast space, followed by the measured rhythm of deliberate footsteps. The sound was unmistakable. A door had opened somewhere in the church's depths, and now someone, or something, was approaching. David extinguished his flashlight in an instant, plunging them into darkness. He crouched low, the cold floor biting against his knees as his senses sharpened. The footsteps grew louder, their cadence slow and unhurried, like the ticking of a malevolent clock counting down. Each step reverberated off the stone walls, amplifying the tension. Max stood alert, his silhouette stark against the faint glow of the moonlight filtering through the stained glass windows. His growl was low and guttural, a sound that seemed to emanate from the depths of his being. David's mind raced, each thought more urgent than the last. Was it Father Jacob, returning to secure his hidden treasure? Or had someone else discovered the evidence David now held? The air seemed to vibrate with the weight of impending danger. He held his breath, his grip tightening around the box, the edges of the cold metal digging into his palms. Time slowed, each second stretching into an eternity. As the footsteps neared, a shadow emerged, faintly illuminated by the fragmented light from the stained glass. The figure paused at the edge of the room, their head tilting as if listening intently. David's pulse thundered in his ears, drowning out the sound of his own shallow breathing. Beside him, Max remained motionless, a steadfast guardian, his eyes glowing with an almost otherworldly intensity. The shadow moved again, this time stepping closer. The faint rustle of fabric accompanied each step, mingling with the persistent thud of boots on stone. The figure's movements were methodical, almost mechanical, as if driven by a purpose they could not abandon. David's heart pounded against his ribs, each beat a reminder of the peril they faced. Max let out a low growl, the sound cutting through the suffocating silence like a blade. The figure froze, their silhouette framed by the distorted hues of the stained glass. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. David felt a surge of adrenaline, his muscles coiled and ready to spring. Would they be discovered? Or could they slip away into the shadows, carrying the damning evidence with them? The figure shifted, their attention drawn to the source of Max's growl. A flicker of uncertainty crossed their posture, a hesitation that David seized upon. He steadied his breath, his mind racing through possible escape routes. Max, ever vigilant, stood his ground, his presence a beacon of courage in the encroaching darkness. The tension was palpable, an invisible force that threatened to break at any moment. David's knuckles whitened as he tightened his hold on the box, its sharp edges a grounding sensation against the storm of fear within him. One thing was certain, whatever awaited them beyond this confrontation, there was no turning back now. The heavy door to the basement burst open, and there stood Father Jacob, his face twisted with fury. His shadow loomed large against the flickering light, casting an ominous presence over the room. "What do you think you're doing?" his voice thundered, a chilling echo that seemed to shake the very walls of the church. Before David could respond, Father Jacob lunged toward him, his hand reaching for the ledger clutched tightly in David's grasp. The priest's strength, bolstered by years of hiding his sins, caught David off guard, and he stumbled backward. In that moment, Max sprang into action. With a ferocious growl, the loyal dog launched himself at Father Jacob, his sharp teeth sinking into the priest's leg. A piercing scream filled the room as Father Jacob tried to shake Max off, but the dog held firm, his growls reverberating like a battle cry. David quickly regained his footing, his heart pounding with adrenaline. "It's over, Father Jacob," he shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. Hearing the commotion, villagers who had been quietly gathering evidence began to converge on the church. Armed with lanterns and a burning determination, they arrived to witness the unthinkable. Their trusted priest grappling with David and a dog, his face contorted in pain and rage. The room seemed frozen in time as the villagers stared, their faces a mixture of shock, anger, and betrayal. Sophia, still shackled but now surrounded by the crowd, found her voice. "He's been lying to all of you," she cried, her voice trembling but resolute. "He stole your money, your trust, and your faith, and he would have killed me to keep his secrets." David held the ledger aloft, his voice ringing with conviction. "This is the proof! The stolen money, the falsified records, it's all here!" He threw the metal box open, revealing the neatly bundled cash, each labeled with the names of the unsuspecting donors. The villagers gasped, their murmurs growing louder as the full extent of the betrayal became clear. Father Jacob, his leg bleeding and his composure shattered, tried to retreat. "You don't understand," he stammered, his voice desperate. "I did it for the church, for its survival," but his words fell on deaf ears. Over the next 2 weeks, the villagers, led by David and Sophia, worked tirelessly to uncover every hidden corner of Father Jacob's corruption. Together, they combed through church records, interviewed those who had once trusted him, and pieced together a damning web of lies and deceit. Each new discovery strengthened their resolve, turning suspicion into unshakable proof. The tension in the village was palpable as the investigation unfolded. Whispers of, "How could we have been so blind?" and "What else has he hidden from us?" spread through the tight-knit community. The betrayal cut deeply, leaving the villagers grappling with the stark reality of how their trust had been manipulated. Yet, amidst the sorrow and anger, a sense of unity emerged. Neighbors who had rarely spoken began to share their stories and suspicions, pooling their efforts to build an undeniable case against Father Jacob. The church, once a sanctuary of hope and faith, became the heart of their collective resolve. Villagers who had donated their life savings, widows who had given in Sophia's memory, and young parents sacrificing for a brighter future all felt the sting of betrayal. Their stories fueled the fire of justice, transforming grief into determination. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. With the ledger and evidence in hand, the villagers confronted Father Jacob during a Sunday gathering. The church, once a symbol of trust, now stood as the stage for his downfall. Candles flickered faintly as David stepped forward, the ledger held firmly in his hands. The air grew heavy with anticipation, the murmurs of the crowd giving way to an oppressive silence. "Father Jacob," David began, his voice firm yet laden with the weight of the moment, "you have betrayed the trust of this community. You have stolen from those who believed in you, and you have used their faith as a shield for your crimes." The priest's face turned ashen, his trembling hands betraying his attempts at denial. "These accusations are baseless," he declared, his voice faltering. But the evidence spoke louder than his words. David opened the ledger, displaying the incriminating entries for all to see. Each page a testament to the depth of Father Jacob's greed, silenced any lingering doubts. Meanwhile, the villagers, outraged by the betrayal, began to recount their own painful stories. Each testimony added weight to the charges, the collective sorrow and fury forming an unstoppable tide against the corrupt priest. "How dare you exploit our trust?" shouted an elderly woman, her voice quivering with indignation. "We trusted you with our lives." As the confrontation continued, the villagers didn't just stop at accusations. They descended to the church basement, guided by Sophia, and uncovered more hidden horrors. Among the forgotten crates of misused donations and forged documents, they found Sophia herself, weak but alive, her eyes reflecting both fear and relief. The moment of her rescue was both poignant and harrowing. David rushed to her side, his hands trembling as he untied the cruel bindings. Max stayed close, growling protectively as the villagers helped carry Sophia to safety. Her first words, barely above a whisper, were, "You saved me. You saved us all." Tears welled up in the eyes of those who witnessed the scene, the weight of the truth finally settling upon them. When the police arrived to take Father Jacob into custody, the villagers stood in solemn silence. Their expressions ranged from relief to heartbreak, a kaleidoscope of emotions reflecting the magnitude of the moment. Some shed tears for the betrayal of their faith. Others clenched their fists in quiet anger. As Father Jacob was led away, his head hung low, the villagers turned their attention to one another, their unity stronger than ever. Max, standing proudly beside David, barked once, as if to signal the end of a long and grueling battle. The village, though scarred, began to rebuild its sense of trust and unity. Sophia, free at last, expressed her gratitude to David. "You and Max saved not just me, but the soul of this village," she said, her voice filled with emotion. In the wake of Father Jacob's arrest, the villagers took on the arduous task of rooting out any lingering traces of corruption. They conducted a comprehensive review of all church activities, meticulously examining accounts, questioning those who had worked closely with the disgraced priest, and implementing strict safeguards to ensure such betrayal would never occur again. The church, once a tainted institution, slowly began to rebuild its reputation under the watchful eyes of its congregation. Recognizing the need for transparency and integrity, the villagers came together to elect a new priest. The selection process was rigorous, involving background checks, interviews, and unanimous approval from the community. The new priest, Father Andrew, was a humble man known for his compassion and unwavering dedication to service. His appointment marked the beginning of a new chapter for the church and the village. As for David and Sophia, their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Gratitude turned into affection, and affection blossomed into love. They decided to start a life together, moving into a cozy house by the lake. The tranquil setting became their sanctuary, a place where they could heal and find joy in the simple things. Max, ever loyal, was a constant presence, his playful energy bringing warmth to their days. Their life by the lake was idyllic. David and Sophia spent their mornings tending to a flourishing garden, growing fresh vegetables and herbs. Afternoons were filled with fishing by the water's edge, chopping wood for the hearth, or taking leisurely swims in the crystal-clear lake. Evenings were reserved for long walks through the sprawling meadows, where the golden light of the setting sun bathed the landscape in warmth. On weekends, they would venture into the hills for camping trips, the vast expanse of nature providing a sense of freedom and peace. Every year, the villagers gathered for a grand outdoor feast to celebrate their newfound unity and the resilience of their community. The feast, held under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights, featured dishes made from homegrown and locally sourced ingredients. It was a joyous occasion filled with laughter, music, and the shared pride of a community that had overcome adversity together. As David, Sophia, and Max looked out over the festivities, their hearts swelled with gratitude. Their journey, though fraught with challenges, had led them to a life of purpose, love, and harmony. The village, once fractured by deceit, now stood as a testament to the strength of truth and the power of collective action. What would you do if a trusted figure in your community betrayed everyone, hiding behind a mask of faith and morality? This is the gripping tale of David, Max the loyal dog, and Sophia, who together uncovered the dark secrets of a priest's corruption and saved their village from deceit. The journey began with Max, Sophia's loyal dog, barking furiously during her funeral. His unusual behavior led David to investigate, unraveling a web of lies spun by Father Jacob, the village priest. Through courage and determination, David and the villagers worked tirelessly to expose the truth. They uncovered stolen funds, false records, and even saved Sophia from being silenced forever. Father Jacob's eventual downfall was not just a victory for justice, but a turning point for the entire village. The community, once fractured by betrayal, united to rebuild trust and integrity. They elected a new humble priest and vowed to ensure transparency in all matters of faith. David and Sophia's bond grew stronger through this shared journey, leading them to a tranquil life by the lake with Max. Together they created a peaceful sanctuary filled with love and purpose, a reminder of the resilience they had shown. Every year, the village celebrates its newfound unity with a grand outdoor feast, symbolizing the strength that comes from standing together in truth and courage. Lessons from the story today is about courage inspires change. Even the smallest acts of bravery, like Max's bark, can set monumental events into motion. Unity is powerful. The villagers' collective effort proved that no deceit could withstand the truth when people stand together. Hope and healing. Despite betrayal, love and trust can rebuild lives and communities. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if faced with such a challenge? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage, hope, and resilience. See you in the next video.